Okay, so good morning, one and all. I welcome everyone to the 138th edition of the Saturday webinar series. I am Anupam Manand, working as a fellow at Manage Hyderabad. This Center for Innovation and Agripreneurship, short form CIA, is a center of excellence in agribusiness incubation.
The 500 units of electricity.
Hosted at the National Institute of Agriculture Extension Management, Manage Hyderabad. It is one of the leading agribusiness incubators in India. Manage CIA has mentored more than 503 entrepreneurs and incubated more than 310 startups from various focus areas of the agri and allied sectors. The topic for today's session is design thinking for agri-startups, building user-centric solutions. Design thinking is a non-linear iterative process that teams use to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems, and create innovative solutions through prototype and test. Design thinking may also be defined as an iterative problem-solving approach that places the needs and experiences of user at the center of the solution development process. To deal with this topic, we have two speakers joining with us today, Madhvi ma'am and Santosh Kavle sir. To introduce our first speaker, Madhvi ma'am, she's a senior vice president HR and has a 25 plus years of experience in talent leader. I've been working at the intersections of technology and human engagements that transforms to bring one's best professional self out. She has also designed initiatives impacting people experiences, leading and contributing to the transformation projects, and be the strategic advisor influencing business growth. With this small introduction, I would like to hand over the session to Madhvi ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. This is such a great forum. And I just want to tell that I'm humbled with this opportunity, as well as looking forward for a nice conversation in the next 20 minutes time. Thank you for actually thinking about, I will let Santosh sir talk about it, but mainly for me, this is a priceless possession of being a part of this group. Let me actually share my screen. 1 minute. Hold on, can you disconnect this, because I think
ma'am, what you have to do is stop sharing your screen, and when you share again, yeah, it's fine, ma'am. You can go with the full screen mode. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So a little bit about me. I'm Madhvi, and more than anything else, for me in my last 28 years, this is the best opportunity, I would say, for simple reason that I believe that everyday life situation gives us an opportunity to rethink something that could create an impact in the bigger way. And what bigger way that you could create for people, and in Hindi or Telugu we say annadata, right? If you're able to actually make their life more easy, when in today's context, everything is a scarcity, whether it is the land, it is the resources, except the population, which is in abundance. And if you could make a difference in their life, I think it's more a survival for each of us than for anybody else in the world. So this is a big difference you're making, and making an impact for them more than to anybody else and to us as such. I'm going to focus on a couple of things. So between Santosh sir and I, the way we would actually want to share our experiences with you is that, one, how do you identify some of these everyday challenges, and typically what we operate with, and how do we need to shift the thinking? One is a mindset, and two is the opportunity, and three is like, how do you actually identify those opportunities and pick it up from there? I'm going to share one example, and that just came a few minutes before this particular session started, and I'm amazed. I think it's called Cosmic World and trying to tell you and give you messages. It's a WhatsApp message, and this is a video that talks about Bonpalli market. And typically in any market where it's the food, the raw food which is sold, there is so much of wastage. And this particular video talks about three things. One is that how the food waste is converted into biogas, and the biogas actually helps light the place, which means that you are actually saving electricity, usage of electricity. Two, you are regenerating the wastage into a lighting which is going to be helpful for the entire market. So it's very self-sustainability, locally thought and locally implemented per se. Now think about it. That's the world that we are living in today, where there is a world of opportunity. You just need to figure out that what exists and how do we start. And what I'm going to talk about is very design thinking framework. It starts with mindset, and let me actually differentiate what's a typical current state of mindset, because post independence, the best education system that what we were left always allowed us to think or start from the how part of it and never from the why part of it. The rest of the Western world, their education system starts with the why part of it and then ends at the how part of it. Because blame it on the education system. Because of the education system, all of us, from our ecosystem to the way we interact with the environment to what we have learned in the schools, we only start from the how part of it. Reverse the thinking. So now I'm going to actually talk about the concept, but then show you that when you start from how and when you start from why, what is the difference part of it? And take the same example. Think about it. All of us know that end state up for a startup is going to be one, making money, and two, making sure that there is a cause and an impact that I'm making, because of which I could have a value in the market, how I'm known to the people, how my concepts are known to the people. So my drive to actually start something and earn in a different way, I start to think about concept and I actually fit the concept into the users per se. But let's say if you flip the thinking, you still will end at making money, but then you would start with the end user in the mindset. And we will take the same example of somebody who actually thought about that there is an abundance of waste, food waste, which is there in this Bonpalli market. And nobody actually would have observed it, that everybody would have felt the stinky smell, but would not have looked at that as an opportunity. So think of it, what was the end user element that they actually picked it up and then said, this is the problem statement, and how do I flip the thinking, and why do I need to solve the problem? So they would have picked up the food waste as the end element, and how do you convert that into an opportunity? So they understood the opportunity that exists and created a concept and went back and said, how do I operationalize it, and where do I operationalize it? That's where the element of lightning in that market could have come in. Now think about it. What did they actually looked at it from a design thinking perspective? They looked at three pillars, the bigger picture part of it. One, what is the need for the people? One, they don't want those stinky smell and food waste left out everywhere. So imagine if I am a vegetable seller in the market and I know that there is a place where I need to just go and dump my waste, because that way I would have, remember, we are operating in a scarcity environment. I have a small little pocket of place and I need to make sure that my fresh food is visible to the marketer. Anybody client coming in there, customer coming in there, they get to see only the fresh part of it and not the waste part of it. Two, I also am, when I'm actually keeping the waste along with the best, people tend to feel that, oh my God, this is going to get spoiled quickly. So it's more of how I'm creating it to people. And that might have been the end user, the marketeer's desire to throw that out and get away from that food waste could be. And now think about it, somebody, X person who walks in and thinks that there is a business viability because I'm not buying any my input parameter. I only am trying to figure out that how do I convert that waste and how do I actually create something which is unique out of it. And again, I don't have so much of money to take it out of that place. So how do I repurpose it in that place? So two, what's the financial and business viability of it? Whatever it is my end product, is it going to be usable by the end state people or not? And how would that be helpful? And that's where the element of technology comes. Now, what do I bring as a technology and how do I actually fix it up? Technology doesn't need to be solution oriented. Technology could be any mechanics around it. So look at technology more in an open word of mechanics around it. So what did we start with? We started with the end user in mind. We started with the opportunity that exists. And then we started to evaluate those feasibility, viability, and desirability part of it. If these three elements we look at an opportunity, that is what is design thinking. And remember, all of us did the same thing. I'll give you one more example. I'm not too sure how many of you are aware. There is a design thinking model, IDEO, that actually works on everybody, most of the big problem statements. So every day we actually take a brush and actually brush our teeth. But how many of you know that earlier, let's say 20 years back, the brush used to be a fixed element, including the bristles in the brush. And over a period of time, the brush became little bit flexible at the start. It allows you to use it to the corners, and it moves a little bit. There's a fungibility that is built into it. And that was nothing more than the design thinking part of it. And a person thought that if I'm using a brush which is so stiff, it doesn't help me brush properly. What if I actually bring in the element of how my finger will operate if I'm actually using to brush my teeth, and how flexible it is going to be? And that's how the flexibility in the brush came in, and it was introduced. And it's a part of design thinking. Every element of opportunity is thinking from a human-centered mindset, how human behavior mindset, and then go ahead and then operate that as such. Let me now take you to the next level as to how do you start and where do you start per se. These are the methodology where you start. First is you have to empathize, because that's where you would be able to feel the people. And how you do it is that you go back and interview people. What is the most challenging problem that you're going through, and where do I actually see a way to think of an opportunity? And right now we're actually staying away from solutioning. When you're interviewing somebody, only ask them what is disturbing them and what do they believe would help solve their problem. And don't think about solution. They may not also be able to think about solution. They would say, and let's take the same market situation. I am coming over here to buy vegetables, and I see all these waste out here going around. It sticks to my feet. It looks so bad. It's stinky, blah, blah, blah. When you're interviewing, you would be able to figure out so many questions. If you go back and compare them to say, what's your experience between shopping in, let's say, a Ratnadeep versus coming to this food market, and where and what would you change? That's where you will figure out some of those elements of opportunity. That's where it's called empathizing. And then you go back, and when you look at all those answers, you would see that everything leads to a thread and a bigger problem that everybody commonly is talking about. That's where you start to define that this is the biggest problem, and how do I actually go back and then solve the problem? And that's where you start to ideate and then create a small prototype and test it. Let's stick to only first three steps: empathize, define, and ideate. Empathy is always about interviewing the end user and trying to understand what they are in an environment situation, and why do they want to come out of it? What is actually difficult for them? Now, let me pause here and see if from the methodology framework and what is design thinking, is there any questions that you have? Write down on your paper. Now let's do a little bit of a shift to why are you here as a startup, and what do you want to address it, and some of the common challenges that might be existing in the agri side. Remember, 86% of our people in the farming side have got only 2 acres of land. We might be doing sharing economy in cities like Hyderabad, but that is little bit, while it's a part of the culture, little bit of a fear factor for people in the agriculture side. For them, the sharing economy is a limited mode. While that's not the topic that I want to talk to you, but let me talk to you and throw some of the challenges that exist for if my end user is agriculture as a unit and farmer as the end user. Climate impact, which means that there is so much of unpredictability. It could be that, that in the last 2 months' time, we have seen unseasonal rains and good rains, basically. If I'm not a farmer who has a mango yard as such, I wouldn't be so much worried about it, because for me, rains are a breather of some kind of cool breeze, because it's been hot summer. But now think about it, it impacts the crop getting impacted, the size of the crop reduces. And very recently, when I bought mangoes, I also figured out that the mango looks very nice on the upward, but then inside there are insects, and obviously I can't use it. So think about it, what it could be impact on such climate and unpredictability in the climate. And working capital is one thing that all of us know about it. I think I will pick another one, which is biodiversity. Because so much of pesticide is used, and obviously we all knew that the biodiversity, the what is there in the soil, how it has helped our farming earlier, and with the methodology earlier. Now we are losing that because so much is happening with so many things that we are trying to do. We are losing those elements. So how do we still protect them and protect the entire ecosystem and then take it together? Those are some of the challenges, and this is just few elements that you could see on the iceberg, tip of the iceberg, and there is so much more which is happening. Now I want to actually challenge it, and this is where I want to leave it and say that what could be the use case, and I'll talk about one technology. A couple of years back, out of some of the opportunity from the company that I'm working in, I got to visit engineering schools, and don't worry about where the engineering schools. And I figured out that some of those engineering school kids, especially in the computer science area, they actually were working on drones and sensors. And when I asked them, what are you doing this for? So they said, there are places where acres of land, you wouldn't be able to figure out that sensing which side of let's say the rice paddy field, water is more and water is less, it needs to be watered, or is the crop actually spoiling in one area, and I'm going to use this drone and sensor to find out and help the farmer think different, go back and see how it can impact. Fast forward, I also read a couple of articles around that, how space technology is going to help people predict both from the weather forecast part of it to also to say that how's the soil is right for the right crop that you want to think about as such. Now think about it, if the predictive and analytics is available to us, or there is a support which is there from technology, what difference can we do? But is the farmer aware of it? And who's going to do that? It's you who will be able to think through what different thing that I can do it. To a simplest element of what I could consider it to change. I'm sure each of us would have faced, and my heart breaks when I actually cross the outskirts of Hyderabad and I see some of the farmers throwing their crop. And I've seen this most often happening with tomatoes. They throw it on the sides of the road. Why? Because one, they are not able to pay for transportation. They have the crop and the crop is really good, but the transportation cost is so high and that transportation is so bad that by the time they will reach the end user, they would not even get the money out of it. So for them, it's like, let me throw this out. Think about it. Annadatta actually getting upset about his crop. His crop always is like a baby that he has actually nurtured and wants to see how the baby is going to be more productive to help him stand tall for the next crop as such. And those are the opportunity I see. And how do we actually convert those opportunity? I've picked up some elements which could be your way of thinking. Whatever could be the challenge that you're picking up, the use case that you're picking up, where do you start, what do you do, and how do you do it? This is more a thinking from how do you want to cover from a design thinking perspective. I want to pause here and see if you have any questions and take it forward. Otherwise, back to you, Anand.
Thank you so much, Madhvi ma'am, for a wonderful presentation and explaining the design thinking, which I personally feels that very complex topics to explain in a very simple manner. You mainly talked about very about the pillars of this design thinking, that every agri startup should think on this pillar, that whether is your business is going to be financial viable, and for what this business is going to be supposed to be start for the people, whether they really feels there is a need for your solutions, and what kind of technology will be solving the problems. This is what I get from the US session, so it's really nice. Now I request to my colleague Anupam to introduce our second speaker. Before that, I request to the participants kindly put your questions in the chat box, or if you want to directly ask questions to the speakers, you can raise your hand. Anupam, please.
Okay, thank you, Amit. So introducing our second speaker for the session is Mr. Santosh Kawale sir. Santosh Kawale sir is the founder of an Indian-based design collaborative known as Desi Collab. He's an engineer turned designer and a social entrepreneur. Santosh sir adds a new dimension to the use of tools and techniques of design thinking and innovation in the context of social change and startups in India. He's passionate to empower young innovators and change makers with design thinking approach. With this brief introduction, I would like to hand over the session to Santosh sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm not able to share the screen yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I have make you presenter, sir. Now you can share the
Yes.
screen.
Okay. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir. Yes. Please make it in a full screen mode.
Hello.
Yeah, your screen is visible, sir. Please make it in a full screen mode.
Yeah, it's full screen now.
Yeah.
Can you see? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts on design thinking that could be applied for agri startups. So, in the slides, you may see what exactly design thinking is and the tools and techniques that are used in the process, and how possibly you can apply it to create new startup ideas or use it for existing startup ideas that you may have. So, to begin with, I introduce my organization. We are the Secular.
Santosh sir, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Could you once again do the slideshow mode, because we cannot able to see the full screen.
Okay.
Mm.
Is it visible now?
No, sir, no, sir. The screen is visible, sir, but we're not able to see in the full screen mode.
So it's full screen mode only that I'm sharing with you. I don't
Okay,
know.
no issues. No issues. So can you do once again from the slideshow from the
So
view?
let me unshare it and then share it. Is it okay?
Is it okay, sir? No issue, sir. No issue, sir. Try to reload it, sir, again. Yeah.
Okay. I hope this is visible now.
Yeah. The screen is visible now, sir. Yes,
Is
sir.
it
Perfectly. Yeah,
okay?
perfect. Good to go
So,
now, sir.
the Desi Lab basically is born to create young innovators and change makers that can empower and solve problems in rural as well as urban settings. So, design thinking and innovation methods are the approaches that we undertake to do various things, and then that way we build creative confidence to help people to emerge as catalyst in the process of national development. So we are a team of experts working in design, innovation, and co-working based in Pune. We have pool of mentors and experts that come together on various projects. We basically help companies, NGOs, and educational institutes to come up with seemingly unreachable solutions by rethinking the problem situation that they have. We offer our clients various product services or business models or marketing campaigns that they may use for their particular case. So building valuable customer experiences which are crucial to the success of these organizations is the key intent. We strongly believe in multidisciplinary approach and co-creation. Let's understand the journey of any given startup. So I have divided it into mainly two phases. One is, of course, the innovation where the problem need to be solved. So there has to be a problem that is being solved for which someone needs to pay. So this is the first phase, and second phase is, of course, the entrepreneurship, where someone with a solution take it into the next phase of entrepreneurship to make business case out of it, where execution of that solution takes place, and once the execution is completed and proven, then the model is scaled to the next level. So mainly today's discussion would be about the first phase, where the innovation uh, is uh, is a major concern, because without having a problem and its solution, one cannot get into the next phase of entrepreneurship. So starting with a problem is very important, as there is a lot of danger of solving wrong problem. So one need to set the problem correct. If the problem itself is not right, may the solution be right or wrong, it doesn't matter, then it becomes a failure. So focusing on the problem is a very key factor. Problem, but it comes in various let's say phases. It's not problem always. It is at times opportunity, at times it is a gap. It sometimes is unserved or underserved need, and at times it is merely a purpose, a dream of someone, or intent of somebody to create something new. So problem cannot be always a problem. Yeah, but it is still important to look for the problems and not the solutions, as focusing on needs is very important, because they last longer than any specific solution does. So if you take example of long distance communication for the discussion today, what we can see is long distance communication as a need remained, but it changed, and it took the solution took various shapes. So initially, people used to do the long distance communication by using pigeons, like by sending the messages or sending the messengers from point A to point B, just to pass on some message. So that was the time when there was a long distance communication as a need, and in today's era we still have that need, but the shape and form of the solution has completely changed, as we use cell phone, we use online communication softwares, we use emails. So the need that was there earlier was still there, and today it persists, but then the solution has changed. So better to focus, if we focus on the real needs, there are chances to create something new, innovative. If we go back in the past and think of a device that could make the same happen very easily, someone would have not believed, isn't it? So it is always interesting or very important to focus on the needs to create innovative solution for the problems. But how and where one can look for the problem? So in agricultural ecosystem, there can be many places. Like when we say agriculture, it's not only about the farmers, but there is a whole supply chain. One can call it as a value chain as well. So farmer, the market, the governance, the community, the institutes that fund these things, NGOs, many stakeholders are there, and opportunity lies at, let's say, in the space of each stakeholder. So we need to look deeper into these situations, these contexts, and let's say day-to-day life of these stakeholders to find the opportunity to solve the problems for them. So how does innovator look at those problems, or let's say how do they find the problem? So they need to go to the customer's environment. They have to watch and record, ask and record. This recording is very important, as then you have better chance to look at the whole information and analyze that information. One needs to also collect the electric form of data, because all the time when we visit or meet, talk to people, we are not in, let's say, we are not very mindful to look at each issues that they may have, or even observation wise, if we have certain perspective to look at the issue, we just hold that perspective and we lose a lot of other insights and information. So it's always better to collect electric form of data. Looking beyond the immediately solvable problem gives a lot of perks and let's say rewards. Therefore one need to, let's say, look beyond immediately solvable problems, and they may give, let's say, uh, traditional or let's say solutions that are already done by the other people. Later, when you come back, you have to interpret the data information and convert it into a really understandable format and interpret it properly, reframe it. So this is very important to be considered, because the problem that is under consideration would be focused only when we reframe the problem and then come up with our version of understanding of that particular situation or the problem scenario. So needs are difficult to detect. Uncovering them reliably requires organized research effort of need finding. So we need to employ, let's say, right amount of energy efforts in finding the needs. In solving those problems, once we discovered, we need creativity, which by definition is, let's say, necessity to achieve the innovation. So the characteristics of the person and the environment influences this creative process. So we need to understand these parameters, what makes us creative. It is, let's say, useful for creating the novel ideas and successfully implementing it. Novelty and usefulness will come in the solution by creativity only. So how does one do that? One has to get into, let's say, creativity. To increase the creativity, there are let's say, two ways of doing it. One is intrinsic and another is extrinsic. The motivation which is intrinsic helps a lot than the extrinsic motivation, as extrinsic motivation is forced, or let's say, uh, uh, ordered by someone else from the external environment. But if you have intrinsic motivation, then there is a possibility that a lot of solution that you are working on may have creative intent or creative outcome. Expertise and creative thinking skills also adds to it, because if you are expert of some field, then you possess a lot of intellect and knowledge about that field, which helps you to creatively solve the problem. But not just that, you can build upon the creativity by let's say practicing various creativity and thinking tools and skills that you can imaginatively use to approach the problems. So this is the let's say basic let's say foundation of how one can be creative. So one can increase their intrinsic motivation, increase the expertise, and practice the creativity thinking skills. Mainly divergent and convergent think in problem solving is very important as a concept. Divergent thinking, let's say, asks us to build multiple number of ideas. So one has to focus on the quantity, and then the quality will come up. So focusing on creating multiple solutions would be very important in this creativity or let's say problem solving stage. Fluency with which number of ideas comes is better. Originality is important. Flexibility and the variety of ideas is also important. Here in divergent thinking, you don't stress upon quality of ideas, as the number here is more important. Even if you find some idea that is coming is a silly one, but that may lead to a better idea in the next phase. So you don't treat it to be trivial. You document it and go ahead. So divergent thinking asks us to generate multiple ideas, whereas convergent thinking is the process after that, where one has to structure all these ideas and choose the best ideas amongst them by using certain criteria. So here one has to give fair chance to each options that is generated in the earlier stage of divergent thinking, so that one can focus, because even if you build multiple ideas, you cannot put all your energy in creating all these ideas, or even some of the ideas are not worthy to be taken ahead. So in convergent thinking, you literally try to let's say filter these ideas and just choose couple of them to take them ahead. So how to enhance creativity? As I said, there is a possibility that one can increase the creative quotient of someone by using some of the tools and methods that are available otherwise. So design thinking is one such a method where one can solve the problem using the 5-step approach, that is the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. But not just this, there are many other tools and techniques that one can use. Let's say, to be specific more about design thinking, why it is different than any other method that is being used for problem solving. It has this human centricity as its approach towards solving the problem. In idea generation, it employs creativity, customer empathy, and iterative learning. Therefore, this method is regarded to be very different and unique. So there are these 5-step and 6-step is implement. So empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test are the process of creation, whereas one has to implement that solution in the next stage. So clearly, if you see that these are distinguished between two phases clearly. First one is the problem phase, and all other stages are in the solution phase. And iteration is at every stage. If you have certain issues, or you see that the current stage is not making sense, you can always go back to the earlier stage. For example, in the test phase, if you find something which is not working, you can go back to the prototype stage and check why it is not working. In implement stage also, when you implement and you understand that there are further aspiration of the customer around the product or service, in consideration, you can always go back and empathize with the user. So going through this journey of design thinking, one has to use organized approach of thinking and use tools. So as I said, in the first stages, when you go through stage one, which is empathize, stage two is define, you get the right problem in hand to taken care of. And then when you use ideate and prototype, you have some sort of solution in your hand. And then you go and test the product with the focus group or the market. And then if there are some issues, you again go back prototype or go back empathize. So here, one by one, we can see that in the empathize stage, you observe and feel. Okay, like the user is feeling what the user is doing, you can observe, check, and note. That becomes an insight for you for moving ahead in the process. So in define stage, however, you analyze, validate, and understand. In ideas stage, you conceptualize, create, and choose from the ideas. You choose to prototype one of the idea or combine couple of ideas together to be prototyped. You develop the solution and build the prototype in the prototype stage. And in the test phase, you take feedback, and based on the feedback, you then iterate and refine the solution. So some of the tools that can help you in this journey are let's say mapped over here. So in empathize, you can brainstorm, do mind mapping, you identify the person, create persona. There are tools like empathy mapping that you can use. You can have storyboard where you can understand the problem frame by frame. In define stage, you have problem definition tool, 5 why analysis, fishbone diagram that are like cause and effect analysis. You have tools like WH questions, problem tree, SWOT analysis, which gives you better understanding of what exactly is the problem all about, and you can very precisely come up with the definition, because clear definition before you process the problem in the solution phase is very important, not for not wasting your efforts. In solution phase, however, in idea stage, there are many creativity related tools to help you come up with interesting ideas that are novel and different than someone else. So here you can come up with faster idea generation with the solution using faster idea generation, thinking hat, scamper, random word, and many more. In prototype, you may have simple sketches, digital models, videos, mock-ups, and even the prototypes like 3D printed or paper models based on the kind of solution that you are opting for. In test phase, you can have user demonstration, usability testings, and let's say survey using the solution, or you may have feedback and inputs given by the users to be imbibed in the design thinking process in the iteration phase. So design thinking process, as I said, in empathize stage, if you want to solve the problem in agriculture, you may go directly and visit people, see what they are doing, what they are feeling, experience what they are actually doing in day-to-day life. So you build better understanding of your stakeholders and decode their liking, their aspiration, and pain points. So most of the times we have certain understanding of the problem, but our perspective varies. As this very old story in mythology suggests us that so I try to relate it with the problems. So problem for us may be totally different than problem for others. So our perception of the problem not necessarily is the best version. So what we have to do is we have to check upon and have the bird's eye view, have in-depth research and deep dive in the user's environment to come up with the real understanding of the problem and not to go merely by our version of what the problem is all about. So to do this, we need to know our customer better. So building the persona where we are, let's say, actually characterizing that particular user or customer is very important. Understanding their interests, personality, skills, their various aspect of their personality is very important to be taken in account. While you go and visit this customer, one can always map their insights into this particular interesting tool called empathy mapping. So what they are thinking, feeling, saying, doing can be understood very well and recorded. And based on these understanding, what are their pain points and aspirations or gain points can be decoded. This research is very important to be done as it gives very important insights. So how do we do research better is feeling, empathizing with the user by feeling the problem, observing whatever is not being expressed or told by the user, one need to observe. It's like reading between the line. Recording, quantifying is important, not just like you cannot go by what one user says. So you need to know the data about how many people are facing the similar problem, whether the intensity of the problem is high, whether the problem is worth solving. So intensity and scale is very important to be understood. Synthesizing is the process where you make sense of the data that you have gathered in this feed, and analyzing what you had in mind as a problem or your version of the problem, which is hypothesis. Validating it is very important. So once you validate, you have to define the problem. You have to again, let's say, come up with a brief, short, and clear information. Let's say as a problem statement. Once you get the problem statement
Sorry,
correct
sir.
after the yes, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Could you please summarize in a few minutes, next
Sure,
few
sure.
minutes?
I just run through quickly and uh, go ahead. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So in define stage, one can have the tool like problem definition, where you can, by using this tool, you can come up with really, really crisp, let's say, definition of the problem and probably the variants of the problem definition. Okay, coming up with the SWOT analysis based on the research is very important to have the focused efforts in certain uh, area of the total problem situation. So ideating the solution by using the creativity and exploration is important. One of those tool which is faster idea generation that is mentioned here. You may let's say use many other tools that are there. Prototyping these solutions will help us to understand whether such an idea actually work, what might be the issue, whether the if it is a physical product as a solution, you may understand scale, proportion, material usage, its ergonomic, product packaging, and many issues that may arise. While you test, you take the feedback, validate whether the solution works for the given situation, and you can definitely then go back to correct and refine. So in a typical design thinking workshop that we go for, these are some of the glimpses. So in you brainstorm, create the identify the problem, create concept proposals, and then build the prototype version, pitch to each other, and then summarize the whole thing. So expected outcome in design thinking process are mainly a new process, service, new product, or new product service system, or simply a new business idea. Yeah. So design thinking can help startups and innovators in many ways to let's say clarify the intent. Okay, bring new insights, immersion in the user environment. By doing the deep diving, they can have the dialogue. So interaction is one of the important things that design thinking may lead to. So ideation, where you can come up with ideas in divergent phase, and then you let's say settle to the ones that you are thinking more relevant in the conversion phase. Integration, meaning combining all these things together and coming up with the prototype or the simple version of the solution. And last is the iteration whenever required. Once you do the solution thing, it comes to a intensification phase where the final product is ready to launch as a startup company. So this is how design thinking may help. Probably this becomes very as a theoretical presentation of how might design thinking may be useful for you to create a startup idea and take ahead the existing startup idea in better way. But practically speaking, if you use these tools at each stage, that will be definitely helpful to come up with interesting solutions on in day-to-day life as well. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Yeah, please request to participants, put your questions in the chat box. We will take it one by one. And before that, also have few questions to that. But Santosh sir, I must say it's a really informative and very deep understanding for us for the design thinking and mainly for the startups who are very early stage. The structured way of to start with identifying problem, get it tested, get it prototype done, and how we can rework on this whole process. You explained very well, sir. And the thing which I
Thank you
picked
so
up from your
much.
presentation, that is where is the opportunities lies. I think yes, you are said right that the opportunities lies everywhere. You have to just look at into the eye where the problems exist. And if you are able to identify how you can identify that problem, you also explain well. If you are able to identify problem, then definitely you will come to the solution, which will make you to give the good opportunity to convert it as a business. So it's really interesting, sir. And the second thing is about the 8 I's for the starters. I believe each and every one participant has taken note of it that they can implement while they are working on their startups. So now I can see a few participants has raised their hands to ask the questions. I'll request to my colleague Saurabh, could you unmute to Bhumi? She raised her hand. So directly Bhumi can ask the questions to the speaker. Yeah, Bhumi, are you there? Hello? I think she's on mute. Yeah, Bhumi, are you there? Okay. I think Abdul has raised his hand. Saurabh, could you unmute him? Yeah, Abdul, you want to ask the questions to the speaker? Hello? No issue. Okay. We'll take a questions from the participants that Gaurav Mehta wants to know, sir, that what stage do you determine the financial viability for the any starters? Maybe ma'am, Madhvi ma'am or Santosh, what will be your take on this question? That at what stage you should determine the financial viability for the startup? Yeah. Madhvi ma'am, you like to take this question?
Santosh sir, I think I heard you speak. You were on mute, possibly.
Yeah.
I can go next. Go ahead.
Santosh
Yeah.
sir?
Yes. So as you see the plot of the startup journey, I believe that getting into the uh, solution first is very important. If you have the solution, then there comes the competition analysis, whether there are solutions existing on the market, whether my solution fits in, whether my solution is better in terms of features and possibilities. So once you are there, you can see and verify whether the solution that you are proposing with certain price range is directly making sense to the audience that you are targeting that solution to. If that is, if the answer is yes, yes, it is feasible financially, then I think you can let's say come up with the numbers, and then you do the financial projections and check whether the startup as a whole, not just the solution, is financially viable as a venture. I think it comes later after you are coming up with the solution to the problem. Before, it is really difficult to analyze and assess.
I agree. I would just say that between the ideate and prototype, you would figure out that is this how financially viable it is. And many a times in the prototype, we might start with very low cost model, yeah, as a part of the prototype, and we realize that if we scale it up, it would be extremely expensive for us to sell it in the market. And that's where we need to go back to the first segment of interview that we are actually doing with the end user to say, is it affordable for them? Is this the one that will actually give me the business share that I'm looking at it? So between the ideate to prototype and prototype to test it, we will be able to, these are the 2 points where we will be able to figure out that from a viability, financial viability, am I ready? And that's where even the venture capitalists or other financial forums is where you would be able to get the support from. If your conviction is very strong that there is a market, people don't know that they would pay for it. The moment they see value, they will be able to pay for it. However, in order for you to have that conviction, you would have to go through some of those questions. Go back to the way Santosh sir mentioned, that you have to go back to your start point to say that, is this what I want to chase? And is this how I want to chase?
Yeah, indeed, ma'am. Totally agreed.
In the real life scenarios, most of the times when we go for testing, there is always a question whether how much would you like to pay for the solution of this kind, because unless you have the tangible solution that is being used by the user, they may not reflect on that particular question. So it is always a question that is planted in the test phase along with the functional testing.
And I was just
Absolutely.
thinking one more is that not necessary always it's going to be buy. So when you are actually proposing your product, it could be a buy or a lease or a rental. So your way of looking at it, when you decide that a product will have X value, and if I have to scale it up, not necessary every time somebody has to buy it.
May I respond to some of the comments that are there? I think someone is saying that nobody wants to pay for the app. Nobody wants to pay. People want for free. What app exists today? Try to sell agri. Shall I respond to that?
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, I think go ahead, respond to it, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so Shri Ananta Krishna ji, you have put a message saying that nobody wants to pay. I think it is very important. That's the reason. Okay, design thinking is in place. You need to have early check. If you do early check, then you won't land into the area where you have already created solution by investing a lot of energy and time, and then you get this surprise that is that your solution is not being used by people. They don't want to pay for it. So this is very, very important for you to understand how design thinking works. That may help you to not to land into the situation like that.
And I think I may want to add one more element. Anything free, people don't relate to value. So you need to show value, and every value has to be converted into I have to earn for it. So when you are communicating the value for it, free might be a sample, but sample is only to let people know that a smaller element of usability, but not exactly to give it to them free.
Yes, in the space, however, in the space of applications, the premium could be very interesting as a business model to be adopted, because I understand totally. I myself, I'm running my startup in agriculture sector, and this could be the probable reason why I am called upon as a speaker here. What I'm doing in my shoe as an entrepreneur is working on an application, and I do see that people don't want to pay for the application, but that is not, that is very gross as a insight. Who don't want to pay for what? We have to go little deeper, and who would like to pay for what rather is very important to be discovered. And once we act on that, I think there will be a value that we can offer for which people may like to pay for. So premium is the right approach to get into the applications.
I want to add on one element of apps. Your question also included what apps exist today. Remember, while we are digitized, not everybody, like the way it is in the urban or city spaces where people are used to apps. So you need to figure out that app is a communication mode to reach to the end user. What is the communication mode where you need to promote the product is the way that you need to look at it. It could be some of those places where they often visit. There has to be conversations from there. Everything doesn't need to be an app mode because end user may not have access to apps as such.
Yeah, I totally agree. And adding to the point that ma'am made, I think digital and physical world, they are let's say considered to be separate things. But when we think of phygital as a strategy, that may make more sense in the context that we are, or the era that we are living in. There is a lot of it's like a transition period where people are moving towards digital world as well. So in these cases, something trustworthy to be promoted in the market only in the digital format is pretty difficult, and let alone the urban context, but in the rural this thing, there is a very difficult situation to propose these solutions in digital format and get paid for it. So phygital is the good strategy where something is physical and digital is bringing or helping to get closer to the physical services.
Yeah, sir. I totally agree with you that the few agri startups which are here dealing with the same premium model, they are really feeling difficult to get the money out of, and that too from the farmer's pocket. It's really difficult in the agriculture domain, and I can see related to that many questions are going on, and I think there can be a separate topic to discuss on this issue that how the startup can get the premium model and get the business out of their model, but that can be discussed in the another forum, as the today's topic is very interesting to talk about the ideation main stage, and I hope it is really going to be helpful to the participants. I can see many questions are coming in the chat box, but due to time constraint we're not able to take more many questions, but yeah, they can reach to the speakers their details in the chat box, and also we are going to share the details through email who are the registered participants. So before coming to the end of this webinar, I would like to make a few announcement that Agri Challenge, the business competition we run across the India. The last date of to apply this challenge is 31st of May. So what is the benefit out of it? The agri startups who are at ideation stage, they may get the opportunity to get incubated with managed CIA, and under RKVY-RAFTAAR, they may get opportunity to go got funding up to 5 lakh rupees to 25 lakh rupees, depends on the ideation stage and the MVP stage startups. Along with that, we run the couple of training programs, pre-incubation program, digital marketing programs. There are links also in the chat box, and you can follow our social media pages to get the regular updates from our end. So this is for the our participants, and I request to give kindly the feedback of the today's sessions, and you can suggest the new upcoming topics for our webinars. So with this short note, I would like to say thank you to the all participants and being interactive and asking the very interesting question to the speakers, and mainly to today's two main speakers. I think it's very short time to discuss this very huge topic, but still they managed somehow and giving your time to deliver a talk on this topic. I would like to say thank you from all the our managed team and all the participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us here.
All the best, and
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you all.